Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The twin sons of Zenthra were in full melt-your-face off mode as Elias Ward sauntered into the marketplace. The place smelled like burned spice and desperation, which wasn't too far off from Elias's usual haunts. Dust clung to his boots. His scarf was soaked with sweat, and he was running dangerously low on the one thing he couldn't function without: patience. The bazaar itself was chaos, a colorful mess of yelling merchants, screeching alien creatures, and some kind of bizarre, squishy fruit splattering on the ground every 5 seconds. Elias wasn't here to make friends. He was here to find a trader who owed him supplies. That was the plan. Keep it simple, keep it quiet, and let me go. The high-pitched voice pierced through the noise, drawing Elias's gaze. At the far end of the market, a petite figure in a threadbare cloak was being manhandled by 2 Rakari enforcers. Typical. The reptilian brutes were 6 feet of muscle, scales, and bad attitude, and they had zero qualms about making a public spectacle out of whoever they decided to harass. "Not your business, Elias," he muttered to himself, adjusting the strap of his satchel. Then the girls had slipped off, and he saw her face. Big, luminous eyes, pale green skin, and a look of terror that screamed helpless alien damsel. Great, just great. The bigger Rakari smirked, his forked tongue flicking out as he yanked the girl's bundle of herbs. "Tribute first, runt. Or do you think you're special?" "I don't have anything else," she stammered. "Please, All right, that's enough." Elias's voice cut through the scene like a blade. Heads turned as he strode forward, his hand casually resting on the hilt of his knife. The Rakari looked him up and down, unimpressed. "Human, walk away. This doesn't concern you." Elias tilted his head, feigning confusion. "Oh, sorry. I must have missed a sign that said free public bullying. Is this a service you offer every day, or just for tourists?" The smaller Rakari hissed, his tail lashing behind him. "You will regret this." Elias's grin was sharp and humorless. "Regret's kind of my thing. Let's dance." The fight was over embarrassingly fast. Elias had a way of moving that made people think he wasn't paying attention, right until his blade was in their side. One Rakari went down with a guttural scream. The other thought better of the situation and bolted. The girl stared at him, wide-eyed, clutching her herbs like they were the most precious thing in the galaxy. "Why, you didn't have to do that," she stammered. Elias wiped his knife on the fallen enforcer's tunic, flashing her a sarcastic smile. "Sure I did. Guy like me can't resist playing knight in shining armor for random strangers." She blinked, clearly not sure if he was joking. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Don't mention it. Seriously, don't. These guys have friends, and I'd rather not meet them all at once." He gestured toward the nearest alley. "Come on, unless you want to stick around and see what happens next." Reluctantly, she followed. The alley smelled like old grease and something that probably used to be alive but had given up long ago. Elias didn't slow down, weaving through the maze of sandstone walls until the noise of the marketplace was nothing more than a dull hum in the distance. When they were sufficiently out of sight, he turned to the girl. She stood there clutching her bundle of herbs like they were a life raft, her oversized cloak making her look even smaller than she already was. "So," Elias said, leaning casually against a wall, "you want to tell me why you decided to paint a target on your back in the middle of a Rakari-controlled market? Or is this just a hobby of yours?" The girl blinked up at him, her luminous eyes filled with a mix of fear and confusion. I didn't mean to." "Let me guess," Elias interrupted, holding up a finger. "You thought you could sneak in, grab whatever you needed, and sneak out without anyone noticing. Brilliant plan. Really top-notch." Her cheeks flushed a faint green, which Elias guessed was the Mirina equivalent of blushing. "I didn't have a choice," she muttered. "Ah, the universal excuse for terrible decisions," Elias said with a smirk. "Look, I get it. Times are tough. Rakari are jerks, and you've got to do what you've got to do. But here's the thing. You're terrible at blending in. That hood's not fooling anyone, and you look like you're about to faint every time someone raises their voice. Her shoulders slumped, and Elias felt a pang of guilt. Maybe he was being too harsh. Then again, she needed to hear it. I was trying to help my people, she said quietly, her voice so soft he almost didn't catch it. That caught Elias off guard. Your people? She nodded, clutching her herbs tighter. The Miraina. There aren't many of us left. The Rakari. They've taken everything. My family, my home. I'm all that's left. Elias rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly feeling like a complete ass. Yeah, well, that sucks. But you're not going to do anyone any good if you get yourself killed out here. I don't have a choice, she said again, her voice firmer this time. Elias sighed. All right, look, I don't know much about your people, but I do know the Rakari. If they're after you, it's not just because you're small and cute. Her eyes widened at his bluntness. I'm not. Relax, Elias said, holding up a hand. It's a compliment. Sort of. The point is, they don't waste time on random civilians. So what's the deal? Why are they after you? She hesitated, her fingers tightening around her bundle. Because I can do this. She raised her hand, and the air around her shimmered faintly. For a moment, Elias felt a strange warmth, like standing in the sun after a cold night. The glow faded as quickly as it appeared, but it was enough to make his jaw tighten. Well, that's not normal, he said after a moment. What is it, magic? Energy manipulation? Some kind of alien voodoo? It's complicated, she said, looking away. It's something only the Miraina can do. The Rakari see it as a weapon. That's why they took my family, to use them. And now they want me, too. Elias let out a low whistle. And here I thought I was the only one with a messed up backstory. She glanced at him, a flicker of curiosity in her wide eyes. What's yours? Long, boring, and not important right now, he said, brushing off the question. What is important is getting you somewhere safe before Graxer sends his goons after us. Her expression shifted to fear at the mention of the name. Graxer. Yeah, big guy, lots of teeth, bad attitude. Ring any bells? He's the one who took my family, she whispered. He's ruthless. If he finds us... Let me stop you right there, Elias said, holding up a hand. I don't do the whole doom and gloom thing. If he finds us, we deal with him. End of story. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to gauge whether he was serious. You really think you can fight him? Not think. No, Elias said with a cocky grin. I've taken down worse than Graxer. Well, maybe not worse, but definitely uglier. Her lips twitched, the faintest hint of a smile breaking through her fear. See? That's better, Elias said, straightening up. Now let's move before someone decides to ruin our day. As they slipped back into the maze of alleys, Elias couldn't help but wonder what he'd just gotten himself into. He'd saved a lot of people in his time, but this girl... She was different. And something told him that sticking around her was going to make his life a hell of a lot more complicated. The midday heat clung to the air like a bad decision, and Elias felt every bit of it as they trekked through the narrow paths leading out of the marketplace. The girl, Kiera, as she had timidly introduced herself, kept close, her oversized cloak dragging along the dusty ground. So, Kiera, Elias began, breaking the silence. On a scale of mild inconvenience to galactic-level disaster, how bad is this Graxer guy? Her expression tightened. He's ruthless. He controls the Rakari warlords and crushes anyone who opposes him. Entire villages have disappeared because of him. Sounds charming, Elias said dryly. You're really selling me on why I should keep sticking my neck out for you. Kiera stopped walking, her luminous eyes narrowing. I didn't ask you to save me. Elias turned to her, raising an eyebrow. Right. Next time, I'll let the lizard goons haul you off. You'd probably last a whole 5 minutes before they tossed you in a cage. Her cheeks flushed green again, and she looked away. I didn't mean... Relax, Elias said, his tone softening. I'm just messing with you. But seriously, you need to understand something. Graxer isn't going to stop. You've got something he wants, and that makes you a target. Kiera hesitated, then nodded. I know. That's why I've been hiding for so long. I thought if I stayed out of sight. Yeah, well, hiding only works until it doesn't, Elias said, starting to walk again. And lucky for you, I'm great at not hiding. Let's find some place safe, and then we'll figure out what to do next. Meanwhile, in the heart of a fortified stronghold miles away, Graxer was not in a good mood. The Vrakari overlord stood in his war chamber, his scaled hands gripping the edges of a massive stone table. Holographic maps of the surrounding regions flickered in the dim light, highlighting key locations, one of which was a marketplace where Elias had caused a scene. You're telling me, Graxer growled, his voice a deep rumble, that a single human took down 2 of my enforcers and walked away with the Mirina girl? The scout standing before him flinched, his tail curling in fear. Aye, it's true, my lord. The human was efficient. Graxer's yellow eyes narrowed. Efficient. That's a polite way of saying my warriors were incompetent. The scout opened his mouth to protest but thought better of it. No matter, Graxer said, his lips curling into a cruel smile. If the girl is with a human, then they're both doomed. Send out the hunters. I want them found before they reach the wastelands. Back in the winding alleys, Elias and Kiera had made their way to an abandoned hideout on the outskirts of the market district. The place was a wreck. Cracked walls, a roof that looked like it was held together by sheer willpower, and a faint smell of mildew. Home, sweet home, Elias said with mock enthusiasm as he pushed open the creaky door. Kiera looked around skeptically. Are you sure this is safe? Safe is relative, Elias replied, dropping his bag onto a rickety table. But it's out of sight, and it'll do for now. Kiera sat down on a dusty bench, pulling her cloak tighter around her. What's your plan? Elias leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Plan? I was hoping you had one. You're the one with the magic glow hands. She frowned. It's not magic. Right, energy manipulation, Elias said, waving a hand dismissively. Whatever you want to call it. It's the reason Graxer's after you, and if we're going to keep him off your back, we need to figure out how to use it. Kiera's expression darkened. I don't want to use it. It's dangerous. Elias raised an eyebrow. Dangerous to who? The people trying to kidnap you? Because I got to say, I'm fine with that. She looked away, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not that simple. Last time I used it, someone got hurt. Someone I cared about. Elias studied her for a moment, his usual sarcasm giving way to something more serious. Look, I get it. Power's scary, especially when you're not sure how to control it. But right now, it's the only thing keeping you alive. You've got to decide, are you going to let it control you, or are you going to take charge? Kiera didn't respond, but the look in her eyes told him she was thinking about it. Before Elias could press further, a faint sound reached his ears. Footsteps, distant but getting closer. He held up a hand, signaling Kiera to stay quiet. Moving to the window, he peeked outside. A group of Rakari hunters was moving through the streets, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. Well, isn't this just perfect? Elias muttered under his breath. Kiera's eyes widened. They found us. Looks like it, Elias said, pulling his blade. Stay here. If they come inside, use your... Whatever it is you do. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice trembling. Elias gave her a cocky grin. What I do best, make bad decisions. As the Rakari approached the hideout, Elias slipped out the back, his mind racing. He wasn't sure how he was going to handle this, but one thing was certain. He wasn't letting them take Kiera. Not without a fight. Elias crouched behind a crumbling wall in the narrow alley, his blade glinting faintly in the sunlight that managed to squeeze through the cracks above. The Rakari hunters moved methodically, their forked tongues flicking in and out as they sniffed the air. They carried weapons that looked like a hybrid of a harpoon and a grenade launcher, overkill for a petite alien girl. But Elias figured Graxer wasn't big on subtlety. 3 hunters, he muttered to himself. 1 human. Odds could be worse. He waited until the nearest hunter turned his back before springing into action. The first Rakari didn't even have time to scream. Elias moved like a shadow, his knife slicing through the exposed gap in the hunter's armor. The alien slumped to the ground, gurgling in shock. The remaining 2 spun around, their weapons raised. Well, well, Elias said, stepping into the open with an exaggerated bow. You found me. Congratulations. Do I get a prize, or is it just the usual attempt to kill me? The taller of the 2 hunters snarled. You're the human who stole the Mirina girl. Stole? Wow. You make me sound like some kind of galactic kidnapper, Elias said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Here's a fun fact. She's not yours to take. The second hunter fired without warning, a bolt of plasma scorching the wall inches from Elias's head. Rude, Elias said, diving behind cover. Can't even let me finish my witty retort. The hunters closed in, their footsteps heavy on the cracked pavement. Human, you will die for your defiance, the taller one growled. Defiance, Elias called out, popping up just long enough to throw a knife that embedded itself in the hunter's thigh. No, this is just my hobby. The wounded hunter howled in pain, dropping to one knee. The other aimed his weapon at the hiding spot, firing a barrage of plasma bolts that turned the wall into a smoking ruin. Elias ducked and rolled, coming up behind the second hunter. Before the alien could react, Elias drove his blade into the base of its skull. 1 more to go, Elias muttered, turning toward the injured hunter. The Rakari bared his teeth, his claws scraping the ground as he struggled to stand. Grax will find you. He will. Yeah, I've heard it all before, Elias said, cutting him off with a swift strike that ended the fight. Tell him I said hi in whatever afterlife you believe in. Elias jogged back to the hideout, wiping his blade on a rag as he went. He pushed the door open to find Kiera huddled in the corner, her wide eyes locked on him. 3 hunters down, Elias said casually. No big deal. You're welcome. Her gaze shifted to the blood on his clothes. You killed them? He gave her a flat look. What did you think I was going to do? Invite them to tea? They weren't here for polite conversation. Kiera looked away, her hands trembling. This is all because of me. If I didn't have these powers... Stop, Elias said, his voice sharper than she'd expected. He crouched in front of her, forcing her to meet his gaze. You didn't choose to be hunted, Kiera. That's on them, not you. The only thing you're guilty of is not fighting back. She bit her lip, her luminous eyes filled with doubt. Elias sighed, softening his tone. Look, I get it. You're scared. And you've been running for so long you don't know how to stop. But you have a choice now. You can keep hiding and hoping someone else fixes this, or you can stand up and show these lizards that you're not some helpless victim. Kiera hesitated, then nodded slowly. I want to fight, but I don't know how. Good news, Elias said with a grin. You're hanging out with the best bad decision-maker in the galaxy. Training starts now. Back at his stronghold, Graxer paced like a caged predator. His hunters had failed to report back, which told him everything he needed to know. They're dead, he snarled, his claws raking across the stone table. That human is more trouble than he's worth. One of his lieutenants stepped forward cautiously. Shall we send more hunters, my lord? Graxer's yellow eyes glinted with malice. No, This is no longer a hunt. This is war. Gather the warlords. I want every Vrakari in the region searching for them. If the human wants to fight, we'll give him a battle he won't survive. In the hideout, Elias and Kiera worked through the night. He showed her how to focus her energy, how to channel it into precise bursts instead of chaotic waves. Think of it like a knife, Elias said, demonstrating with his own blade. A knife isn't dangerous until you use it the right way. Same with your power. Control it, and it becomes a weapon. Let it control you, and it's just a mess waiting to happen. Kiera nodded, her expression determined. She raised her hands, and the air around her shimmered faintly. This time, instead of an uncontrolled burst, the energy formed a tight sphere that hovered above her palm. Elias whistled. Not bad for a beginner. She smiled faintly, the first real smile he'd seen from her. Don't get cocky, he added with a smirk. We've still got a homicidal lizard lord to deal with. What's the plan? She asked. Elias's grin turned wicked. We're not running anymore. If Graxer wants a fight, we'll give him one he won't forget. Elias leaned over the battered table in the dim light of the hideout, a hand-drawn map spread out before him. Kiera sat across from him, her small hands gripping the edges of her cloak as she listened intently. We can't sit around waiting for Graxer to knock on our door, Elias said, tapping the map with a finger. He's got resources, numbers, and a lot of anger issues. That means we need to hit him before he can mobilize. Kiera frowned, her luminous eyes scanning the crude lines of the map. Hit him? You mean? Attack him? Exactly, Elias said, grinning like a man who just decided to bet his life savings on a bad horse. If we take out one of his supply depots, it'll slow him down and send a nice little message. We're not playing defense anymore. Kiera hesitated. But how? It's just us. Graxer has an army. Elias leaned back, crossing his arms. An army's only as good as its resources. You cut off the food, the fuel, the weapons, they crumble. Lucky for us, I happen to know where one of his main depots is. Kiera looked skeptical. How do you know that? Elias smirked. Let's just say I've had some run-ins with Graxer's goons before. They're not exactly subtle about their operations. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. All right, what do I need to do? Elias's grin widened. Now you're talking. Here's a plan. The depot was nestled in a canyon on the outskirts of Graxer's territory. The Vrakari had fortified it well, with guard towers, heavy weapons, and enough foot soldiers to make an assault suicidal. For anyone but Elias, that is. The sun was setting as Elias and Kiera crept toward the edge of the canyon, using the rocky terrain for cover. From their vantage point, they could see the depot sprawled out below, its lights flickering to life as the shadows deepened. All right, Elias whispered, pointing to a stack of fuel tanks near the center of the depot. That's our target. We blow those tanks, and the whole place goes up like a fireworks show. Kiera swallowed hard. And then what? Then we run like hell, Elias said, flashing her a wink. She gave him a nervous look. You're really not afraid of anything, are you? Fear's overrated, he said, checking his knife. You ready? Kiera took a deep breath, summoning the energy within her. Ready. They moved under the cover of darkness, slipping past the outer perimeter without a sound. Elias's years of combat experience showed in every step he took, his movements precise and deliberate. Kiera followed closely, her heart pounding in her chest. The first challenge came in the form of a pair of Vrakari guards patrolling near a storage shed. Elias motioned for Kiera to stay put, then crept forward. A moment later, both guards were on the ground unconscious. That was almost too easy, Elias muttered as he waved Kiera forward. They reached the fuel tanks without further incident. Elias pulled a small device from his satchel, a makeshift explosive he'd cobbled together earlier. Hold this, he said, handing it to Kiera as he began rigging the tanks with detonation charges. She stared at the device in her hands. This seems Dangerous. Only if you drop it, Elias said without looking up. Comforting, she muttered under her breath. The sound of a footstep behind them shattered the quiet. Elias spun around, his blade at the ready, but it was too late. A Vrakari guard had spotted them, and his shout echoed through the canyon. Time to go! Elias barked, grabbing the explosive from Kiera and slapping it onto the last tank. Alarms blared as more guards swarmed toward them. Elias drew his knife, cutting down the first two who got too close. Kiera, panicked, raised her hands and unleashed a burst of energy that sent a group of charging guards flying. Nice work, Elias called, ducking under a plasma bolt and slicing through another attacker. I'm trying not to think about it, she shouted back, her hands glowing with power. Elias triggered the timer on the explosive. We've got 30 seconds, move. They sprinted toward the canyon's edge, dodging plasma fire and leaping over obstacles. Kiera stumbled once, but Elias grabbed her arm and pulled her along. Behind them, the fuel tanks erupted in a massive fireball, the shockwave knocking them off their feet. Elias rolled onto his back, laughing despite the chaos. Now that's how you send a message. Kiera sat up, coughing from the dust and smoke. You're insane. Probably, Elias said, getting to his feet and helping her up. Come on. We've still got to get out of here before they figure out which direction we ran. Back at his stronghold, Graxer stood before a holographic report of the destroyed depot. His claws clenched the edges of his throne, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. A single human and a girl, he snarled. And my warriors couldn't stop them? The lieutenant standing before him flinched. The human is skilled, my lord, and the Mirina girl's abilities are stronger than we anticipated. Graxer rose to his full height, his tail lashing behind him. Then I will handle them myself. Send word to the warlords. I want every resource at my disposal. No one defies me and lives to tell the tale. Elias and Kiera trudged through the barren expanse of the wastelands, the twin suns dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows over the jagged rocks. The explosion at the depot had sent a clear message, but now the message was coming back to bite them. The distant sound of Rakari war machines echoed through the canyon. Graxer was mobilizing, and they were the prey. You know, Elias said, his voice laced with sarcasm, I was really hoping for a quiet stroll through the desert. Maybe a sunset, some light conversation. Not running for my life with a homicidal lizard lord breathing down my neck. Kiera shot him a look, her luminous eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. This was your idea, remember? And what a great idea it was, Elias said with a grin. We took out their supplies, made them angry, classic strategy. He paused, glancing over his shoulder. Although I could have done without the part where they send the whole army after us. They won't stop, Kiera said softly. Graxer doesn't forgive. He'll keep coming until we're dead. Elias's grin didn't falter. Good thing I'm bad at dying. In the heart of the Rakari war convoy, Graxer rode atop a hulking armored beast, his claws gripping the reins tightly. The flames of the destroyed depot still burned in his mind, fueling his rage. The human thinks he's clever, Graxer growled to his lieutenant, who rode beside him. He thinks he can humiliate me. The lieutenant, visibly uneasy, nodded quickly. He'll regret his actions, my lord. The hunters are closing in. Graxer bared his teeth in a cruel smile. Good. I want him alive long enough to beg for mercy. The girl, however. His voice trailed off, his eyes gleaming with malice. She belongs to me. Elias and Kiera reached the edge of a steep ravine, its jagged walls stretching into the distance. The wind howled through the narrow gap, carrying with it the unmistakable sound of approaching engines. Looks like we're out of road, Elias said, peering into the ravine. Unless you've got wings hidden under that cloak. Kiera shook her head, her hands trembling slightly. What do? We can't outrun them. Who said anything about running? Elias replied, his grin sharp as a knife. Kiera stared at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. Dead serious, Elias said, pulling a small device from his satchel. It looked like a crude detonator, cobbled together from salvaged parts. What's that? Kiera asked. Insurance, Elias said. I rigged a little surprise back at the depot. Figured they'd send their biggest guns after us. Kiera's eyes widened. You left explosives there? Not just explosives, Elias said with a wink. Remote-triggered plasma mines. Enough to turn half their convoy into scrap metal. We just need to lure them into position. The sound of war machines grew louder, and the first of the Rakari hunters appeared on the horizon. Their armored vehicles rumbled forward, bristling with weapons, while foot soldiers flanked them on either side. Elias and Kiera stood at the edge of the ravine, their backs to the abyss. Ready to give them a show? Elias asked, his knife glinting in the fading light. Kiera swallowed hard, then nodded. I'm ready. The first wave of soldiers charged, plasma bolts lighting up the dusk. Elias moved like a whirlwind, his blade flashing as he cut through the advancing enemies. Kiera raised her hands, the air shimmering as she unleashed bursts of energy that sent the attackers sprawling. Not bad, Elias called over his shoulder. Maybe next time, try aiming for the big ugly ones. I'm doing my best. Kiera shot back, her voice strained. As the battle raged, Graxer himself appeared, his hulking form looming over the chaos. He dismounted from his beast, his eyes locking onto Elias with predatory intent. So, the clever human finally stands his ground, Graxer snarled, his claws flexing. I'll enjoy tearing you apart. Elias smirked, wiping blood from his blade. Big talk for someone who's about to have a really bad day. Graxer lunged, his speed belying his massive frame. Elias dodged the first strike, barely avoiding the claws that raked through the air. Kiera! Elias shouted. Time to hit the button. Kiera hesitated, her hands trembling as she held the detonator. Now, Kiera! Elias barked, dodging another swipe from Graxer. With a cry of determination, Kiera pressed the trigger. The mines detonated in a chain reaction, lighting up the ravine like a second sunrise. The shockwave sent Graxer's forces reeling, vehicles flipping and soldiers scattering in panic. Elias threw himself to the ground as the explosion roared around them. When the dust settled, the once imposing convoy was nothing more than a smoldering wreck. Graxer rose from the rubble, his armor scorched but intact. His yellow eyes blazed with fury as he bared his teeth. This isn't over, human, he snarled. Sure it is, Elias said, kicking a loose rock over the edge of the ravine. See you at the bottom. Before Graxer could react, Elias grabbed Kiera and leapt into the ravine, using a grappling hook to slow their descent. At the bottom of the ravine, Elias and Kiera landed with a thud, both breathing hard. Well, Elias said, dusting himself off, that went better than expected. Kiera stared at him, her eyes wide. You're insane. Yeah, but it worked, didn't it? He said with a grin. Kiera shook her head, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. I can't believe we survived that. Elias's grin softened. Get used to it, kid. This is just the beginning. The sun was setting over the jagged cliffs of the ravine, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Elias and Kiera stood at the bottom, their breathing heavy, their bodies battered but alive. Above them, Graxer's forces scrambled to regroup, their numbers drastically reduced after the explosive ambush. But Elias knew one thing. Graxer wasn't done. All right, Elias said, straightening his jacket and brushing off some dust. Time for the grand finale. Kiera's luminous eyes widened. Finale? We barely made it out alive. Exactly, Elias replied, flashing her a grin. Which means they're overconfident, disorganized, and pissed off. Perfect time to finish the job. Kiera hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. How? Graxer's still up there. And he's not just going to walk away. Elias's grin turned sharp. Oh, I'm counting on that. Elias found a narrow passageway that wound its way back up the cliffside, hidden from view. As they ascended, he explained his plan to Kiera. We'll get close enough to Graxer to take him out directly, Elias said. No more running, no more playing defense. This ends here. Kiera stopped in her tracks. You want to take him on? Alone? Elias turned to face her, his expression unusually serious. Not alone. With you. She stared at him, stunned. Me? I'm not a fighter like you. No, you're better, Elias said, stepping closer. You've got something none of them can handle. You've got power, Kiera. And if you don't use it now, when are you going to? She swallowed hard, fear and determination warring in her eyes. What if I can't control it? Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we go down swinging. But I've got a feeling you're going to surprise both of us. At the top of the ravine, Graxer stood amidst the wreckage of his convoy, barking orders to his remaining soldiers. His rage was palpable, his yellow eyes scanning the area for any sign of the human and the girl. You think you can hide forever? He roared, his voice echoing across the cliffs. I will find you, human, and when I do, save the speech, lizard breath. Graxer spun around, his claws flexing as Elias stepped out of the shadows, his knife gleaming in the moonlight. Behind him, Kiera emerged, her hands glowing faintly with energy. You, Graxer snarled, his massive frame towering over them. You dare to challenge me here? Elias shrugged. I figured you needed a personal touch. Besides, I thought we could settle this like civilized beings. Graxer's laughter was a guttural growl. Civilized? You're nothing but an insect beneath my boot. Then step on me already, Elias said, his grin widening. With a roar, Graxer charged. The fight was chaos. Graxer moved with terrifying speed, his claws slicing through the air as Elias dodged and countered. The human was fast, but Graxer was relentless, forcing him back with every attack. Any time now, Kiera, Elias called, narrowly avoiding a swipe that would have taken his head off. Kiera stood frozen, her glowing hands trembling. The energy within her surged wildly, threatening to spill out uncontrollably. You can do this, Elias shouted, blocking another strike. Focus! Her breathing steadied, and she closed her eyes, letting the energy flow. When she opened them again, they glowed with an intense light. Graxer! She yelled, her voice ringing out across the battlefield. The Vrakari turned, snarling. You dare! Kiera unleashed a focused blast of energy that struck Graxer square in the chest, sending him crashing into a boulder. The impact cracked the stone and left the warlord momentarily stunned. Elias didn't waste a second. He lunged forward, his knife finding a gap in Graxer's armor. The warlord roared in pain, swiping wildly, but Elias ducked and drove the blade deeper. Kiera raised her hands again, sending another blast of energy that pinned Graxer to the ground. The warlord's struggles grew weaker until, finally, he went still. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the sound of Elias catching his breath. He pulled his blade free and wiped it on Graxer's cloak. Well, he said, turning to Kiera, that was dramatic. She stared at him, her glowing hands slowly dimming. Is he dead? Elias nodded. Very. And hopefully, that's the last we'll see of his fan club, too. Kiera sank to the ground, exhaustion overtaking her. I didn't think I could do it. Elias crouched beside her, a grin on his face. Told you you'd surprise us. You're tougher than you look, Kiera. She managed a faint smile. You're not so bad yourself. Elias helped her to her feet, and they looked out over the ravine. The remains of Graxer's forces were retreating, their morale shattered without their leader. What now? Kiera asked. Now, Elias said, slinging an arm around her shoulders. We find somewhere quiet, drink something strong, and figure out how to keep this galaxy from falling apart. Sound good? Kara nodded. Sounds good. As the two of them disappeared into the night, the stars above seemed just a